We are still lost in echoes. We are lost in a revolving door, imprinting behavior as an unspoken rule for spirits that have been divided into female and male energies. And what has been done before and how people perceive you is pre-installed. That is why the tale of the scapegoat is age-old, and the condemning and sending into the desert can be harnessed. The people that are condemned and cursed act out their misfortune and then are blamed for it. But it's used to further divide and imprint the behavior of the human condition. It is by no means the truth. It is a conditioning that has been done over the years by those that want our behavior a certain way. So the greater good is not a new phenomenon. It's just called today gain of function studies, because those that have been condemned became its blood sacrifice. It's a very indirect way of killing, of using human blood sacrifice in its modern day. Gain of function studies is nothing new. It's the same exact system that we have been using before, and it's still going on today. And it's going on with people that seem to be telling you the truth, but they're not. Influencers today are no different than actors we have today, or politicians, or comedians, or what they call the Nephilim, the clown comedians. They're all the same. They're considered God's doves, or people without a soul, but they have been made that way because they're not allowed to have one. It's an MK Ultra condition, how they separate your spirit, your soul, from the human physical vessel, and those are then directed to behave a certain way in order to extract a certain outcome. What people don't understand is when they see somebody and have a preconceived notion of who they are, that image, that idea is given to them. The person then that reacts to the outcome, such as a scapegoat or a person who has been cursed, is then pretty much on a one-way track, because what they're doing is they're acting out their torture. And for the person then who sees them acting out is given a superficial idea of what's happening around them, which further instills their programming. But it's not the truth. So what has happened yesterday, or has been happening for millennia on this animal farm, is still continuing and is still happening. But it is by no way the truth. People are around us are conditioned in interference, and it's a very subtle interference, because we cannot really tell who's pulling our chair, but it is that interruption. It is that interruption of our own free thought, in our own behavior, and our own expression, of hindering that. When people tell you that, all you have to do is meditate and ignore and you'll be okay, it doesn't happen that way, because the physical body has limitations, and you cannot separate yourself from the four walls that are a physical manifestation, and you have to obey the laws of this physical manifestation. And there's only so much this physical representation allows, and people don't know how to behave themselves around them. This whole thing was a setup from the get-go. It was never meant to manifest itself. So this repeating cycle we're on has been going on for many years and many eons. So the idea that the elite have been conquered and they have egg on their face is a fallacy. Is a complete fallacy. And we want to have them now as the scapegoat, which in fact all they have been is been propped up for the fall guy. But it's by no means enlightenment. It's by no means having come to a conclusion about this animal farm we're on. It has been and always will be a setup. The new matrix further divides us. It is not bringing us together. I think, as far as I understand it, it's the 6th time this matrix has been changed and reworked. But all it can really do is further divide and divide. Whenever it sees another problem, it just divides that problem away from its main subjective, which is its extreme polarization of the female and male spirit, which then can be harnessed. It is a misfortune for people to think that somehow you can find yourself in the other, because in this game there is no such thing as a twin flame. There is no such thing as finding yourself in the other. That's the big joke. That's the big trick. Because at the end it comes always as betrayal. At the end you're always being set up, and you're always looking for that other. You're always looking for the one. You're always looking for your better half, and that's how they keep you playing. Because one day you might find that other half. One day you might fulfill. One day you might be whole again, and that's how they set you up here, and that's how they can harness those two energies. The male spirit, the soldier, that they can then manipulate and use. And the female spirit, in Schadenfreude love, who will then eternally be consoling the male spirit who's been manipulated. But it's mostly the female spirit that is used to egg on the male spirit, who needs the female spirit in order to feel whole, to make him do things that he may not want to do. As I said before, we are in a revolving door, and this has been happening for a very, very long time. But it's by no means the truth. To use children and family values is an age-old trick, and that is the most perversion that can exist, using innocence in itself to manifest a certain outcome. That is evil. And that's why I always say the perversion of the mind is the most cruel of all its violation, combined and exponential. It's the most devious, evil thing you can do that has been played against you. The unspoken rule and word that we are subjected to now is deep embedded into our skin, and most people don't even know that it's why it's been done for. This disgust you may have for another male spirit as a competition and not as a friend. That is probably the most vile that can be. Instead of harmonizing and finding the other male spirit as your friend, you will find him as the competition, or find beauty in yourself, in the other, in your neighbor, has been turned against you. One is not the other, and the other is not the one. I always say that because in this game of duality, we keep thinking that the other side has the answer, but they're played off against each other in a sort of battery that pings them against each other. And once you remove yourself from that, once you detach yourself from this whole polarity gameplay, then you see that neither or is the answer. It's a continuation of the not good enough game. And if you continue on that trajectory, you will forever be stuck looping. It's an empty loop. Of our desires that have been used against us, which are legitimate. And the 7 sins are a setup, are a complete setup. Because these weapons are by no means new. They have been used against us for many years now. Neither is the natural world. The natural world is matter. I think people forget that somehow. And those things that have been played upon, such as the American Indians looking for signs in the eagle, or a bird flying by at the right time when they thought this particular thing, in order to engrave their synchronicity. These are the same concepts that are playing out today, only in other objects or in electronic form. If you're deceived by such things and believe them in some way a sign of truth, then you're being played. You truly have to step back in order to see the whole picture. There's many rings to this game, many lies that have been used against us and controlled against us. And it's very difficult for people who have been tortured, who have been used, and who are subjugated, especially the Masons, what the Masons have done with their hierarchy of initiations for very limited people, who are told to keep their mouth shut and don't see no evil, don't hear no evil, don't speak no evil, becomes a problem because they become enablers for their limited privilege. And this just doesn't mean minions or outliers or influencers or God stuffs. This is the regular person on the street that is then pimped out not to speak, or to stay in their lane, or to shut up, or not to speak out. They become enablers. They become part of the system that is imprisoning themselves. At the same time, making them feel somehow that they're worthy. They're not, because they're doing a good thing, because it's working against themselves. But they don't see it. They don't see it because what they have done is they have cast out the person that is screaming out the loudest, the scapegoat, the person that is being used to be blamed, who has nothing to do with it, who's just acting out on his triggers, such as thieves, rapists, liars. They have been condemned on the outskirts of society. So in order to compensate for the lack that they feel or get, they then scream and show their physical torture, or they take what has been taken from them. The rapist is no different. Look at the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin. That tell you exactly. That is a person that has been condemned, who has been cursed, who other people see with preconceived notion, and who cannot get laid. Some people act out on it. Some people become sad and lonely and die a lonely life. This is a reality that we have to see, but that negative emotion, that negative state of energy is part of what drives this human condition. It doesn't matter if they have to act out on it, it's still a negative condition. And we all feel it, the sadness. And because what you take from somebody else eventually will come back to haunt you. But that's what we're stuck, that's the entrapment system we're stuck in. We somehow think that by taking from somebody else, we can enrich ourselves, and we can't. Evolution is an incredibly slow process, but it has been so super hijacked in this game for a specific agenda that it's not real, and it's a con. Because in essence, in the paradox, evolution is extremely slow. It's when you have an epiphany, a thought, a revelation. And parents are not initiated. They're just breeders in this world. Because the outside world does the initiating for them. Send them to the wolves, and then this kind of Bible dogma. But what they're doing is they're setting up their children in a horrible way, without doing their own job, without being parents. And it's still happening today. And they feel somehow they're being worthy, they're being good parents. They're not. They're being miserable parents. And most of these people produce 3, 4, 5, 10 children, not knowing that they're sending them out to their own enslavement. But they find pride in their children, and they steal the innocence from their children, which is incredibly wrong. Because a parent is supposed to be the adult in a relationship. Now, the powers that be have decided on our old way of our controlled evolution. You can see that with Jake Shear's last video, where basically gays are going back into the closet. Too much music is the video. But at the end he says there's never enough too much music for me. But still in the closet. All these systems are there to control us. They're not there to enhance us, to truly open us up to all our feelings, our emotions, our energies. But that cannot be harnessed. If you would truly be whole, that cannot be controlled. And they need to control you. They need to harness your physical and spiritual vessel. That's how they can manipulate the physical manifestation of this world. The problem with that is you will always have that splinter. You will always have that thought that something isn't quite right, that something is missing, that there's pain and suffering out there. You cannot, it is an impossibility to think that somehow you can hide this away, because there's always a little crack that will come through. There's always something that will show up in your life. And that will be the splinter. That will be the pain that will remain with you, that something isn't quite right, that something isn't the way it's supposed to be, and that you're being abused, you're being directed, you're being subjugated, you're being told what to do. most horrifying thing for me is watching children being used for their innocence. And that's normal parents. The vampires, the most blood-sucking vampires on this planet are parents. Punto y stop. It's so easy for me to see, but people have made it a sense of pride, a sense of pride sucking and breeding, and sucking on their children's innocence for their lack of worth, for their limited privilege, for their imprisonment. And then, as an occult behavior, or continuing this Stockholm syndrome to the next generation. We are not creating free, powerful, beautiful spirits. We are creating a humanity in bondage to itself, further imprisoning itself, with a sense of strange pride about it. The prisoner imprisoning himself and directing his own prison. It's such a tragedy, but what can you do? All you can do is tell people, despite all the burying and the water downing of other information, or being made ridiculous by other people.